When most people think about race, they think about biology, but race is not just biological. Race is economic. It's political. It's about power and control over resources. Although slavery and Jim Crow ended generations ago, their effects didn't disappear. They evolved into systems that still shape outcomes today. Race became significant during the rise of the transatlantic slave trade. European nations were competing for wealth, land, and global dominance. Black people were not competitors in that system. They were the commodity. They were the source of wealth being extracted. In other words, Black people weren't just excluded from the economy. They were the product that built it. To justify this system, race was later connected to science and biology. It was treated like a classification of human species. Ideas like survival of the fittest were used to rank groups and normalize inequality. Those who controlled wealth also controlled the narrative, and they placed themselves at the top. Racism in its original form is not just prejudice or personal dislike. Racism is a system where one group controls a disproportionate share of wealth and power and uses it to dominate, exclude, and subordinate another group. That control shows up in access to jobs, education, housing, business opportunities, and political influence. Over time, the definition of racism was diluted. It shifted from a system of economic power to something described as attitude, bias, or individual behavior. And when that happened, accountability for the system itself became harder to see. During and after the civil rights era, the concept of race expanded. Other groups were included in minority classifications, increasing competition for opportunities and resources. But the original economic foundation remained unchanged. Wealth stayed concentrated. In the United States, the majority of wealth has been accumulated, protected, and passed down within the same group for generations. Through businesses, land, stocks, trusts, and institutions, that wealth continues to circulate within those same networks. Meanwhile, Black Americans were historically denied access to those same wealth-building systems. Even after legal freedom, there was no large-scale transfer of resources to close the gap. So while income can rise and fall, wealth, what you own and pass down, remains largely unequal. And many of the assets Black Americans do acquire often depreciate instead of appreciating in value. This is why inequality persists, not because of individual failure, but because of structure. Racism, at its core, is an ongoing competition for wealth and power, and there is no finish line, because the system was never designed for equal starting points. So if we're going to understand outcomes today, we have to look beyond surface level explanations, because race was never just about identity. It was always about who controls the resources and who doesn't.